Hello and welcome back to Cabin Organic. Today we're going to share with you how easy it is to can your own beef, lamb, venison, moose meat, or any other kind of red meat at home in your pressure cooker. Start by preparing your jars in advance. So wash them with very hot soapy water, or you can sterilize them if you're more comfortable doing that. I usually don't. Set your prepared jars aside and you can start cubing up your meat. We usually cut them up in about 1 to 1.5 inch cubes. Pack your meat into your canning jars, and you can use whatever size or shape of canning jars you like. I prefer the wide mouth because it's easier to get the meat out once it's canned. No matter what size of jar that you are using, fill your jar up to within 1 inch of the top. Don't pack it in really tightly, but put it in so it's a bit snug. And I like to use a chopstick or a wooden spoon to kind of press around to get the air bubbles out. Now at this stage, some people will add a bit of boiling water to the bottom of their jars. In my pressure cooker instruction manual, it says in capital letters, do not add boiling water to the jars. Just use the dry pack method. So that's what I do, only because it's specified in my particular pressure cooker's instructions. Have a look at your pressure cooker manual and see if you've got some other recommendations there. But I do recommend following your pressure cooker instructions to the letter, just for safety. Once your jars are filled, you can now go ahead and wipe down the rims of your jars with a very clean damp cloth and a bit of vinegar. Then you can put the lids on top of your jars and just finger tighten. So not really wrenching on it to get it super tight. You just want it snug. You want some of the air to be able to escape during the pressure canning process. So not super tight, but not super loose either. Now while you're doing your jars and cutting up your meat, you can have your pot of boiling water ready to go on the stove. You're going to have to, again, look at your particular manual for your pressure cooker, and it will tell you what the volume is of boiling water you're going to need to add to your pot before you start the canning process. So for my particular pressure cooker, I need 3 quarts. No matter how many jars I'm putting in, it's always 3 quarts. You can add about 2 tablespoons of vinegar to this water as well, and that will help reduce the staining of the glass jars. Now you've got your jars in your pressure canner here. As you can see, I can fit 7 jars at one time. And now it's time to put the lid on your pressure canner. It's really important that you become very familiar with your particular canner and make sure you follow your instructions to the letter. Everybody's model is a little bit different and will call for different times and what poundages of pressure. So really look at your manual and really be prepared to follow those instructions at this point in the canning process. Once you have your lid on your pressure canner, the first thing you want to do is make sure you've got a really good seal. And then you're going to want to bring the water to a boil inside. Once you have a nice steady stream of steam coming out of your valve, you're going to set your timer for 10 minutes. And you're going to allow that steam to come out for 10 whole minutes before you add your stopper on top of that valve. Once the stopper is placed on the valve, you officially have a tight seal and pressure can now begin to build in your pressure cooker. And now you're just going to let the pressure slowly build until it reaches the pounds of pressure that were recommended by your particular instructions. So for mine, I needed it to get up to 12 pounds of pressure, and I was supposed to keep it at 12 pounds for 90 minutes. Now it's really important as you get to your pounds of pressure, it's really important to start turning down that heat and try to maintain it at the recommended pounds. You don't want it to get below the recommended pounds ever, because if that happens, you're going to have to start your timer all over again. Okay? And this is one of the reasons why you really want to commit to this process. You don't want to start it and then go watch TV or go play with your child. You really want to make sure that you can be in the room the whole time, really, and keep an eye on that pressure canner, or at least be able to hear it if you've got a jiggler. And now, once you have successfully kept your pressure canner up to the proper number of pounds for the proper length of time, you can then turn the heat off. And as I said before, I had mine for 12 pounds of pressure for 90 minutes. Then I turned the heat off and I took the pressure canner off of the element and I just let it sit. And I don't open it, I don't take the valve off, I leave it until it is completely cool. And then and only then will I open the lid. And it's also easy to see on the valve that it has dropped down to 0 pounds of pressure, and it is safe to open the lid. You really don't want to rush this process because you risk cracking your jars inside. Here's an end shot of the final product, and I have to tell you, the canned meat doesn't always look very pretty in the jar, but once you take it out of the jar, heat it up, add it to a stew or to a soup, or just create some gravy for it, you will enjoy the most tender, the most succulent, the most flavorful meat ever. Canning your own meat is a very safe and flavorful way of preserving meat. And if you're like us, we often have a large amount of meat all of a sudden that we have to process and store. And quite often our freezer gets filled up very quickly. So for instance, if we're butchering chickens, we will can a large portion of that, and that is an excellent way of storing our meat harvest and having it in the pantry ready for us, especially for those cold winter months. I hope you enjoyed this video on canning beef, and I hope you've been inspired to try canning your own food in your own home. Please subscribe for more videos by Cabin Organic.